Hey there! Check out this cool image I found. I swear this goes somewhere. The late 90s and early 2000s were rife with exaggerated stereotypes about gamers, often portraying them as self-absorbed, antisocial people.
Long hours at the screens, psychologists say, can lead to extreme introversion. Youngsters communicating in a video fantasy land and not with their peers or parents.
These perceptions reflected broader concerns around games during the turn of the millennium. In the 90s, parents voiced growing concerns about the effects of video games on their children. Fears over violent content led to US Senate hearings and the eventual creation of the ESRB rating system, a process that was broadcast on TV and further fed the public hysteria.
Instead of enriching a child's mind, these games teach a child to enjoy inflicting torture.
And to an extent, parents and adults weren't wrong, especially at the time. Games were primarily single-player experiences, starting as arcade high scorers that, in their original context, were designed to earn nickels and dimes from the player. Screen time in this sense was a brand new concept, demanding more engagement and interaction than just the typical television, and the long-term effects were unknown. However, in today's world, life without screens, and particularly without video games, is nearly inconceivable. I believe they've actually ended up becoming a vital part of social interaction, and there's a way to put it into perspective. Here's a concept you might be familiar with. There's home life, and there's work life, which could be a job or school. Typically, these aspects of your life are associated with specific locations. You can probably think of a place where you often relax or socialize too, which is separate from these and is part of your social life. In sociology, the concept of these places is prevalent, with each of these environments in your life being the first, second, and third place respectively. You can find your third place in cafes, bars, churches, clubs, whatever the place, that's the term. An example of the third place in action can be found in sitcoms. The cast of Friends can be found socializing together in the Central Perk Cafe, and Cheers is a sitcom that centers around the third place that also happens to be its namesake. According to Oldenburg and Christensen, a third place is open, informal, convenient, unpretentious, encourages conversation and laughter, and attracts regulars. In the early days of gaming, it's easy to imagine how it entered the conversation as a third place. It's widely regarded that arcades peaked in the late 70s, with the Cyberspace Handbook by Jason Whittaker pinpointing this period to the release of Space Invaders in 1978. And while I think that arcades at this time met the criteria well, being a casual and convenient space to converse and play, it was missing the banter. Chasing high scores against three-letter names has little appeal in building a social network. It wasn't until the 1990s that games like Street Fighter II cemented them as true third places by adding some casual competition and social banter to the mix. Not to say that the competition didn't have its downsides.
I want that guy banned from this arcade!
The arcade stands beside cafes and bars as a prime example of a third place, checking all of the boxes. But what if the games themselves were third places? Massively multiplayer online games are a cornerstone of the video game industry. While the early days of MMOs or MUDs don't significantly contribute to the conversation of third places with their focus on individual goals, current generation MMORPGs such as Blizzard's 2004 World of Warcraft or Square Enix's Final Fantasy XIV are more contemporary examples of the third place. MMORPGs offer a vast, interconnected world with thousands of other players. With an avatar of your choice, a screen name, and an internet connection, the game's mechanics play hand in hand with the communication features. One of the genre-specific mechanics of MMORPGs is raiding, in which players must band together in large groups to defeat a boss or enemy. This is a form of structured socialization that they use. Raiding is so integral to these games that guilds and factions have become systems, allowing players to join organizations and plan raids together. With all of this combined, MMORPGs are the perfect example of a third place in gaming. For some, it might be the role-playing locations like hubs or taverns that more directly parallel real-world third places. For others, it might be their guild's meetup spots or raid locations. The evolution is quite evident here. And with approximately 7.25 million subscribers as of 2024, if those numbers were to hold with the $9.99 monthly price tag, Blizzard is generating over £800 million annually from World of Warcraft alone. And you know what? That actually seems like a big barrier to entry. Yes, a vast majority of MMOs are subscription models. The original MMOs I find even charged by the hour. Neither approach is really ideal for a younger audience, so in the 2000s, simpler options were released every year to fill the gap in children's games. Toontown is notable, alongside Club Penguin, Moshi Monsters, and Bin Weevils. These sites were free, and aside from Toontown, were browser-based for accessibility. They were also far more focused on social elements, almost designed with the concept of being a third place for children in mind. Coming out of the era of scrutiny and stereotyping, when the basement-dwelling gamer was a common thought, I think the impact and meaning of these titles often go underappreciated. These games were third places for people, to such an extent that their enduring popularity is seen in rewritten counterparts, where longtime fans maintain discontinued titles for new generations. Sorry. I did hear there was a cold going around. Third spaces in video games are a critical topic to consider when thinking about COVID-19 and its resulting lockdowns worldwide. Physical third spaces shuttered, with some never reopening. Remote work at home further muddied the distinction between first and second spaces, making it essential to have a digital alternative to the third place in these confusing times. Before this, video games were a place to be, and now they were one of the only places to be. While voice chat platforms already existed before this, with Skype and TeamSpeak, Discord emerged as the leader, surging in popularity by the end of 2020 and doubling its user base and company valuation. It had already been the platform of choice for gamers leading up to this point, but the server format really succeeded here, digitally mirroring third places, with communities persisting in miniature chat rooms. More games during this time began to hinge on socialization. It Takes Two is an entirely two-player split-screen game, and despite the distance, it still won Game of the Year in 2021. Among Us is a game reliant on your ability to communicate and be deceptive, and it launched in 2018 pre-pandemic to little fanfare. But in 2020 it was played remotely with Discord to make it one of the most successful games of that year, with over 400,000 concurrent players on PC. Virtual reality also saw a rise in quality and accessibility with the launch of the Quest 2, which allowed the general public to socialize in apps like VR Chat and Rec Room, the former of which has experienced steady growth, with an all-time peak occurring just 4 months ago. It shares qualities with web-based MMORPGs, offering an endless amount of customization in user-generated worlds, and there are countless other video essays about the strong relationships that have formed in-game. Coupled with its proven player base that hasn't dwindled in years after launch, and VR Chat is, in my opinion, the most remarkable and influential example of a game as a third place. Post-pandemic, co-op focused titles have just continued to rise in popularity, reflecting not only a shift towards games that prioritize shared experience over long-term progression, but a shift in the landscape of our social lives and the turbulent nature of the 2020s making the transition back to a physical third place tougher. We made friends and built networks that transcend continents and time zones, and there's now a huge market for games that allow us to pick up and play something together, and put it down without much hassle. Games like Lethal Company, Content Warning, and Repo are all designed with this philosophy and have proved incredibly popular, despite scrutiny of rehashing core mechanics. Because, frankly, that's not what matters about the games right now. It's the people. We're in a new landscape, and in ways we have been since the late 2000s, but the video game industry and its audience have evolved and matured since then, only rapidly since the 2020s.
So, take a look back at how it all started. The antisocial, disconnected gamer that parents and adults alike feared. And after years of shifting industry and social patterns, it turns out the average gamer is more connected with modern society than anyone. Thanks for watching.
Psychologists remind us every younger generation has to have something to scare adults. Right now, all of this is certainly it. Terry Drinkwater, CBS News, San Francisco.